With serious World Series aspirations for this season, the Philadelphia Phillies finally got on the board, making a trade for Austin Hayes, who seems to be the perfect platoon bat for Brandon Marsh out in left field. Now, the work is not done, as they even dug deeper into their concerns for relief pitching, with Sir Anthony Dominguez being a part of the trade here. We're going to talk about what those next steps are for this Phillies team, how things are impacted, and the names to keep an eye on from here. Now, before we dive fully into it, I do want to make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 98.6% of you guys tuning into the channel have not hit that subscribe button just yet. We got to keep that Phillies Digest family growing, because there's plenty of breaking news and Phillies baseball to get into. So let's do just that and talk about things. Luke Arcaini. So we already dropped a video talking about what the Austin Hayes trade means, what he brings to the table from a player perspective, but the Phillies are not done. So talk to me about your mindset from here, what you thought of it, and what the next steps could be.
Yeah, just immediate reaction. I thought it was a perfect trade to start. I think, like you said in our Hayes video, it wasn't the home run. It was, to me, it was the leadoff single, right? I think right now this is a great trade to start. For one, this is your platoon bat, like you already said. This is your guy that goes out there every other day with Brandon Marsh. Guy crushes right. He's hitting 330 against lefties. With an OPS near 900 against left-handed pitching. The dude really hits him hard. He's hit the ball the hardest he's hit in his career this season. Hard hit percentage is through the roof this year from what it's been. And I think it's a trade for me where they're not giving up any of their prospects, right? It's a major league for major league trade. If you want to find out who was in that package, go look at that Austin Hayes video. But really for me, it's sending guys that really weren't going to have a huge impact. Maybe one, definitely more than the other. But not really right now guys that are going to be impact guys for you in the postseason. So being able to get a guy that's going to probably play about almost every other day for you right now, for two guys that weren't going to do a ton, that's a win for me right there.
Yeah.
And the fact that now you can load up all these prospects, or a good amount of these prospects, for maybe one of these guys that we're about to get into out of the bullpen, that's really big for me. Because I think right now this bullpen is good. They've had their struggles, but I think this deadline can take the bullpen from good to like the best of the best.
Yeah, and it feels like in these trade conversations leading up, we can kind of break things down into three categories, right? That there's the starting pitching conversation, the relief pitching conversation, and the outfield conversation. Everything else is pretty solidified. I mean, there was 3 All-Stars in the infield, for goodness sake there. JT,
we don't need any more infielders.
Yeah, we're all good on everything else, but those are kind of the three categories. Now, the outfield has somewhat been addressed here, that I do think I look at this as pretty much purely a platoon with Brandon Marsh. Could still see something go down with the Luis Robert sweepstakes or something like that. Another bat, that center field position, still a bit of a question mark, but what's clearly a need at this point is relief pitching. Now, we do have a couple names to go off here as far as what interest has been sparked. We got to report that Carlos Estevez, Kyle Finnegan, and Tanner Scott are all names that the Phillies have been involved in. So I want to throw it to you for this portion of the conversation. Luke, which out of these three, talk me through each of them, and who's your preference at this point in time?
Yeah, so right now for me, there's two that I would like more than the other. I would love Estevez, and I would love Tanner Scott. If I had to put a number one, I would probably put Tanner Scott at number one, and then Estevez, and then Kyle Finnegan. Tanner Scott for me right now is just the best reliever left on the market. He's the best relief pitcher that can currently be traded right now. He throws hard. He's a lefty. Like there's nothing wrong with having too many left-handed relievers. Good left-handed relievers are pretty hard to find. And it's getting a guy like Tanner Scott, who's been elite for Miami for many years now. That's really my number one target. As far as Estevez, the only thing that would really put Estevez above Tanner Scott for me right now is the fact that he's a righty. And while I'd say there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of lefties, I think the Phillies are a little low on the right-handed reliever side right now. I mean, after the Sir Anthony is now gone, if you look at who the Phillies have left as far as right-handed relievers, you have Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman's probably the best relief pitcher on your team right now and probably a top 5 reliever in baseball. You
Matt,
have
Matt
a Ryan
Strom. I'll throw in
Kerkering.
Matt Strom in the conversation here as well.
That's fair. Yes. Hoffman, Strom, kind of a 1A, 1B this year. Really can't go wrong either way. But as far as right-handed relievers, Hoffman, definitely, obviously, your best right-handed reliever. And then you have a Ryan Kerkering, who obviously has nasty stuff. He's really young. He's definitely had a little bit of a rut the last few weeks, but I'm still not worried about Kerkering. He's young. He's got time. He's still a really valuable arm for you. After that, it really ducks off now. You only have Jose Ruiz and Junior Marte. Ideally, two guys that you would hope wouldn't be on the playoff roster.
Yeah.
If it comes down to that, maybe a Junior Marte as your last bullpen arm, that would be fine with me. But no Junior Marte that's in a 1-run game in the NLCS in the 8th inning type of thing, right? Like that can't be the case. If that's the case, then Dave Dombrowski failed at the trade deadline. So right now for me, the reason I would look towards an Estevez or Finnegan is because of my need for a right-handed reliever right now. As far as Finnegan, I would just really prefer Estevez over him because one, straight up, Estevez doesn't walk people. He just doesn't walk anybody. In 34 appearances this year, he's walked 5 people.
Wow.
In 34 innings, 34 appearances, he has an ERA under 2.5. He's allowed 9 earned runs in 34 innings. He has a whip of .74. Hitters are hitting 169 against him, and he's walked just 5 guys. And he's only allowed 3 home runs. That's nasty stuff. So there was obviously the Lauber report from the Philadelphia Inquirer that the Phillies are interested in Estevez. I would love it. Listen, if you were saving your prospects for a reason, if there was any possible way that you could get Carlos Estevez and Tanner Scott,
Do it.
I mean, you got to throw them all,
Yeah.
right? That would take this bullpen to like a legit, like one of the best bullpens we've seen in years, like across all of baseball. That would be Jeff Hoffman, Matt Strom, Tanner Scott, Carlos Estevez, Jose Alvarado, Orion Kerkering. Like Orion Kerkering would be your 6th arm in your bullpen. Like that's gross stuff. But really, I mean, as far as these guys, I don't think they could go wrong with any of these 3, right? I mean, all 3 of these guys are really good relievers. All their ERAs are under 2.5. Like all 3 of these guys are really legit. Right now, for me, I would prefer Estevez or Scott over Finnegan, though.
Yeah, I'm a Tanner Scott guy, to be perfectly honest. That I do think that is the answer and the preference in my mind. Now, I'm not nitpicking here, and I think all these guys would be improvements. And to be honestly, to honestly call things out here, when looking about why this trade happened, I think it was straight up because Seranthony Dominguez is not quite good enough to cut what your playoff rotation of arms should be at this point. And that sucks because we've had some really great moments with Seranthony. He has pitched some extremely high leverage situations, but I think it's pretty clear that Topper's lost, yeah, gotta love the sleeve, but I think it's pretty clear that Topper's lost a lot of faith in him, and I don't think he'd be regaining that back at any point this season. So I think it makes sense to go out there and look for an upgrade, but that also means you have to get one, that you have to make sure that you lock down an arm. And I also I don't think any trade that goes down is going to be fixing this. And to be perfectly honest, it's because of the state of baseball more than anything. But I don't think we're going to get that true closer in the way that I desire on this Phillies team. I think there's going to be a lot of bullpen by committee type high leverage situations and playing the matchups, which I hate. Now, granted, we saw the Craig Kimbrell experience, and we know if that guy's not good enough, it doesn't matter, even if he is your quote unquote closer on a night to night basis. But even a guy like Tanner Scott, who I think is probably the best bet to be in the mix for those type of things, I just don't think we're getting that, which disappoints me. But granted, you got to make the best of whatever situation. So for me, that's bringing as many power arms as you can. And I think even if push comes to shove, if it is an extremely high price for an outfielder, I would feel much better going with 2 relieving arms and dealing with what they got right now than overpaying for a guy that maybe that is the case.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Right now, I think Austin Hayes is really a great get. I still think they're going to get one more bat.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be some crazy bat. Granted, there is also the argument: do you get one reliever and do you throw everything at Luis Robert still? And do you run on the days left-handed pitching is out there? Do you run an Austin Hayes, Luis Robert, Nick Castellanos outfield? It'd be
cool.
really good.
Yeah.
It'd be really good. that is still an option. I from what I've heard and seen, the Phillies are still in on Luis Robert. It seems like everything is there. They're still kind of in the sweepstakes there. I wouldn't necessarily say it's very likely. And if it were to not happen, I still think they could go get one more bat. Could they get a guy that can hit the corners? Yes. I don't think it needs to be some huge thing, but a guy that you can bring off the bench and I can say I have confidence in he's going to get a hit for us in a playoff series, right? Because right now, I mean, if you go to look at this bench right now, it's not great. I mean, your first left-handed option to hit left-handed pitching. Sorry, left-handed batter. My God. A left-handed batter off of your bench is probably Garrett Stubbs. Right? So I think there's a need right now. There's a need for a guy that isn't going to start. I don't need another starting outfielder unless it's this big-time trade, right?
Yeah.
If it's the big one, then do it. But I don't need some big move right now. For me, I need that sort of a bench bat, some guy that I don't need to go out and hit 440 home runs, right? It's just some sort of guy that can bring more consistency, because I think that's still something that this Phillies team is trying to find, at least in the offense right now over the last few weeks, is just straight consistency.
Yeah.
And then as far as the relievers, like you said, I think I'm still on board, especially with it after losing Sir Anthony today, that they need to get multiple. They can't come out of this deadline with one relief pitcher. They have to get multiple, whether it's two big names or a big name and a small name. And listen, that would be okay with me too. If they go get a Tanner Scott, they don't have to go get an Estevez after that. Listen, I would love it, but they don't have to sell everything for two relievers. If you go get a guy like Estevez by himself or Tanner Scott by himself, I think you can go look at a more low-key bullpen name, a guy that's not necessarily going to be throwing ninth innings for you, but a guy that can get outs. Sort of a guy like a Sir Anthony Dominguez, right? That's obviously hopefully a little better than Sir Anthony, but a guy that isn't flashy, but you can trust.
Yeah, absolutely there. And as far as the bench bat, you think Matt Stairs has anything left in the tank these days?
Listen, man, he might.
Yeah.
He might.
Give me one or two more moonshots and we're in business there. So yeah,
all I need is one.
Yeah, all he needs one. But yeah, I am in agreement with you there. I do think reliever has certainly moved to the top of my priority list, which I kind of felt different about until this trade. But the fact that Sir Anthony's not in the equation and kind of looking at what their options are, you got to come away with multiple. So Dave Dombrowski, still a lot of work to do at this point in time. We're going to be locked in from start to finish right here on Phillies Digest. And once again, if you have not already, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button. We got to get more than 1.4% of you guys watching, tuning in, and hitting that subscribe button there. Keep this Phillies Digest family growing. We got some big plans as we dive deeper into this postseason, or the rest of the regular season and then postseason. So make sure you're locked with us there. Smash that subscribe button. Drop a like on this video. We'll be talking to you next time. Peace.